And welcome back to TommoTalks, the topical conversation podcast where this series, TommoTalks Music. Today's guest I am an absolute huge fan on for a number of different reasons. First of all, her nickname is the Godmother of Drumming. Second of all, she has been playing drums for over 56 years. Third of all, her teaching style is so unique, concise, and to the point, she basically makes me want to start drumming all over again. From humble beginnings from small town Michigan, USA, to literally hundreds of thousands of hours of pad practice, to featuring in Drum Magazine, appearing on many sessions of the world's largest online drumming tuition website, Drumeo, to an Instagram account following of over 200,000 followers, is there anything this lady cannot do? It is my absolute honour to welcome along to TommoTalks the Godmother of Drumming, Dorothea Taylor. Dorothea, welcome. How are you?
I'm just great. Thank you for having me.
Listen, I said before we started recording, I'm a huge fan of you, and I was actually got the jitters when you signed. I could see you logged in when you clicked on the link. I got all nervous, and I've never had that before. So, again, I'm a massive fan, and thank you so much for being here. And we've got lots to talk about today. So, I'm sure that most people listening have probably seen you on YouTube before or heard the name, etc. And there's been a lot of stuff documented in that, but I want to do things a little bit different today and sort of go right back to the beginning. Before you actually started in the drum and bugle corps, so you grew up in small town Michigan. Now, do you remember what sort of music was playing when you were a child? What your parents were listening to? What was sort of in the household at that time?
My father loved music, and I've never mentioned this in any of the other interviews, but he could have been a musician and he could have been a drummer, because when we used to eat at the dinner table in the evening and my mom didn't have it quite all put on the table yet, I remember him playing rhythms with his knife and his fork on the table and or plate.
Right.
I remember that very distinctly. So I know he had it in him, but I think my gosh, he was born in 1915.
Wow.
So I mean, he didn't have those opportunities, and in that small town where I grew up, it's a mining town, and so all the men, by the time they were 16 years old, they were down in those iron ore mines. And a lot of them didn't finish high school. Most of them didn't finish high school, and
Right.
my dad was one of them.
And to put that in perspective, 1915, that's the year the Titanic sunk, right?
Gosh, I think so.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time. He just didn't have the opportunity, but I think, he probably could have been a musician. So I think he probably passed it along to me. And I remember just being very, very young, 2 and 3 years old. I had one of those little teeny tiny pianos.
Oh, yeah.
Know that I was getting interested in music. Then my mom remembers that I would cry because I wasn't making any songs that probably I was aware of and hearing by the music that my father would play at the house, which was mostly, I think, big band type music.
Right.
And so then by the time I was in third grade, I was 8 years old. Our neighbor was moving and they gave us their piano, and I started piano lessons.
Wow.
And my piano teacher just was amazed. She thought, I was very, very good. Just the first 3 or 4 months that I started piano. Then I lost interest. I took for 6 years. So I took right up until 8th grade. I was getting, it was too classical, and I don't really like, I want something you can jam
Yeah.
to. Classical is just,
Hilarious.
I don't know, little too serious, I think. And so that's when I decided to join the Drum and Bugle Corps that we were lucky enough to have,
Mm.
because by then I had seen them in parades. We have a lot of different festivities during the festivals during the summertime there. And so there's always a parade for the Firemen's Festival and the Italian Festival, all kinds of things. So I had been seeing the drummers, and I just knew that, that's really what I wanted to do.
Now,
So,
just for the folks that are watching, especially Southern Hemisphere, that may not be familiar with drum and bugle corps, can you just sort of explain a little bit what that is and how it sort of how it works?
well, drum and bugle corps are very, very strict as far as the discipline in playing. Everything is perfect, or try to be as perfect as can be. So you have your drums, your snare drums, and your tenors now, multi tenors, and all the tuned bass drums, and then you have your pit that are just gigantic pit now with marimbas and xylophones and concert
Mm.
bass drums and things that just are in the front of the field. And then you have your bugles. And so there's no clarinets or flutes. It's not anything like a marching band. These bugles have a lot more volume. And so the shows that they do are all outdoors in
Right.
the summer. And when they all turn and tilt their bugles and stuff up towards the stands, I mean, they can blow you away. It will make goosebumps on
Mm.
your arm. Just so powerful.
Yep.
And so they have all the different size horns, contrabass, and
And
etc.
I didn't know too much about it, so I looked into a little bit, and it's quite, you talk about being strict, etc. But there's also a whole seniority aspect to it. Like
Yeah,
if you're joining, you don't just start on a snare drum, do you? Can you sort of
no,
explain that?
no. Well, in a lot of the drum and bugle corps, they do have a like a feeder corps, because those kids that start with the feeder corps will feed up into, as the others age out after their summer of being 21,
Mm-hmm.
uh, then those spots open up. And so you feed up into the corps when those spots open up.
Right.
And
It's like a hockey team.
right. So, yeah. And like baseball, they have those B teams before they
Mm-hmm.
make the major leagues and things like that. So it's the same type thing. And then you have intense training during that time that you're in the feeder corps. You could be in the feeder corps a year or two or possibly three as you're learning, depending on how young you are when you start. So I think you could start as young as maybe even sixth or seventh grade. I started in eighth grade and then marched that summer. And then going into ninth grade, I think I got up into the regular big corps and started rehearsing with them all through the winter. We rehearsed 2 days a week, and it was probably 3 hours every rehearsal, and then we were ready for the next season. So um, I believe I played tenors. I don't know why I don't know that clearly. I might have played the tenor drum,
Right.
just the single tenor drum back then, and I know that the last 4 years I played snare.
Now, what I find very interesting is that, we talk about the discipline of this and how it was very strict, etc. Being at such a young age, especially today, a lot of kids, they can't deal with that sort of strict or having boundaries or things like that. Looking back, what do you think it was that really sort of, because you've openly said in a number of different interviews that you were just so hooked and so passionate about it. What was it, do you think? Do you even know, or you just drawn to it and it was just like what you were meant to do? Do you remember it all?
I feel like it really was something that I was just meant to do, even though I had not seen women yet. I don't think someone reminded me that Karen Carpenter would be the same age, and but I don't think she came out uh, into the music world until maybe in 1970-ish.
Right.
She might have been playing, but I don't think any of us knew of her. So at the time that I joined, I don't think I knew of any female drummers. And luckily, when I got there, there was one other girl that had been in there probably that whole past year.
Is that right?
And yeah, she's the one that was in that video of the three of us.
Okay.
My sister and myself, and then this person who turned out to be my best friend. So my sister being 6.5 years younger than myself, she wasn't in it because when I got married and left town, she just started joining. So I didn't see her during her practice time,
right,
and learning time. But when she was marching with the same corps, she was in there, and they were receiving big trophies, best in state, best in Michigan.
And this is a thing, again, for the Southern Hemisphere folk, I don't know if they realize just how big it is, like you represent your state, and there's literally thousands of different bands around the country that come together to go against each other, right?
To compete, right? Mm-hmm. And there was actually several drum and bugle corps in the state of Michigan, which they weren't really huge drum and bugle corps. Like today, the sponsors, I mean, these people have big budgets.
Right.
And the drum corps have a lot of people in it. A big color guard, a big horn line, a big percussion line. So, they have to have buses, plural, to transport all that, equipment trucks and all, where we did have a female bus. Back then, we had to have a female bus and a male bus, and then chaperones, and then a big equipment truck.
Now, I would imagine, and well, this is a guess actually, would a lot of folks transition from the drum and bugle corps into the military to do the same thing?
Yes, you can do that easily.
Right.
And have such rigid training that the military would love to have you.
I'm sure, yeah. Now, speaking of military, I believe that's why you left Michigan, right? Until you moved to Myrtle Beach. Your husband was in the Air Force, I believe?
Yes, he's from Myrtle Beach.
Right.
Stationed up in Upper Michigan, the Upper Peninsula.
Right. And what year was it that you moved to Myrtle Beach?
Well, we got married in 1970, and then he had 10 months left. And so we went to Oregon.
Okay.
For those 10 months, and then the base closed, so we got out a little teeny bit early, and then moved to Myrtle Beach in 71, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful part of the country, let's face it. I don't know why you want to move away from there, to be honest.
Just in the summer, I enjoy going to Michigan to be out of the extreme heat.
Yeah.
But we didn't get to go this year because of COVID. So
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
We've been here the whole summer in the heat.
So you get to Myrtle Beach. So what happened then with your playing? Did you search out any drum and bugle corps there, or what was the situation once you got there?
No such thing here. But when we got here, our little apartment we were living in, I had my drums set up, and someone passing through, because there was a flower shop right behind us. And I think someone passing through could hear me playing and somehow invited me to be the drummer for a big show that they always put on every year at the hospital.
Right.
For the hospital, raising money. And there was a big ladies group that were well known in Myrtle Beach. And somehow they found me. And I played for that, whatever that was, some type of program. And I think that's what got my name out within the local musicians. And then someone picked me up, asking me if I wanted to be in a band playing 5 nights a week, playing country music. And I didn't know any country music. Up in Michigan, we didn't have a radio station that played country music back then. So I learned all the country music songs, and we had a packed crowd every single night in that that venue we played. It was a restaurant bar thing, and we played 5 nights a week. And
5 nights a week.
I got pregnant and still played. Then had went back with them again and played 5 nights a week. My husband just would keep the baby.
Right. Oh, what a legend. So, so basically, you're a professional musician, and this would be like early 70s.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, first of all, being a professional musician, working musician in those days would have been a tough thing to do. But also being a female, like how did you find that? Was there any discrimination, or was everything okay?
I do not remember any discrimination. People were shocked when we would play these venues that they would see a lady, and they still are today. The band that I just finished up playing with several months ago, people would be dancing, and then they would look over and see me playing and get out their phones and start videoing or snapping pictures. And that was back in the 70s, and then this is 2020 now.
Yeah.
And it just was the same reaction. But back then, when I was playing, I don't remember anything thing unusual, really.
Right. That's great. That's great to hear. And like when I was growing up playing music, there was never really any girls playing. If there was a girl in the band, it was usually vocals. And it was only when I started doing the podcast that I started getting on Instagram, looking around, and I'm absolutely floored at the talent in female artists out there. And I've spoken to a number of them in past episodes, from Norway to Australia to the US to Canada. And some of these female artists make me want to put my bass down or burn it, because they are just incredible. And this is why I really sort of try and connect with them, because I feel like there is, especially today, there is a little bit of, I don't know, male sort of, I don't know what it is, but, when you see a female pick up a guitar, it's always like, okay, whatever. And then you see them play and it's like, oh my God, and then there's a big wave of insecurity come over you, like, oh my God, I'm not that good. So I just think it's amazing. And like your message and the way you get out there is perfect, because with the whole online thing, and you can relate to this, because when I was a kid, there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram, there was none of that nonsense. The bullying that has started as a byproduct of social media, it's absolutely disgraceful. And, I know there's a lot of young kids out there, be it boys or girls, that probably want to have a go at playing music, but are probably too scared just because of the comments they'll get or what have you. So having people like yourself out there doing this and sending this message, I think it's huge. And I'm sure you probably get a lot of messages from young girls as well, right? Saying thank you.
Every day. And you brought up a good point. Back when I was playing, there was no bullying. People just didn't do that. You didn't talk someone down. It was just, you had manners, where I feel like the kids at schools now, they don't have manners. And you're hearing about bullying in the schools all the time. Well, I teach drums at the middle school just as a volunteer type thing. They do pay me, but it's more kind of volunteer.
Right.
So I go to the middle school and help the band director all throughout the year. And just walking the hall, if the bell rings, the kids are coming towards me. They see me, an adult, walking in their direction, and they don't even move over.
Oh, no.
They'll walk straight for me, and I have to move against the wall to allow them. They just don't have the respect.
Yeah.
And those are the type, students that, and their mentality now is totally different than back in the day.
I call it the timeout generation, Dorothea. So, for example, if my dad asked me to do something when I was a kid, I wouldn't even look at him. I'll just go, yep, and get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise I would have a number 9 fare up my jacksie. Do you know what I mean? And
exactly.
Yeah. And I listen to kids tell their parents to shut the hell up. You're not the boss of me and things like this today. And I'm like, what is going on?
I just can't imagine
Mm.
even thinking about speaking to an adult like that and your parents.
Imagine in your day, your dad, born in 1915, working in the industry that he worked in. There would have been zero tolerance there for any answering back or anything like that, right? Can you
Right.
imagine answering back to your dad when you were, say, I don't know, 10 or 11?
Never, never.
You might not be here today.
Exactly. And my husband and all of his family and relatives and people from the South, they answer back as, yes, sir. Yes,
Mm,
ma'am.
I've noticed that. The manners of the people, I've spent a lot of time down, so South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, been to Savannah a number of times for work in that. And it's so beautiful to hear people talk like that, and there's some sincerity behind it too.
Right.
But then if you hit up, say, to New York State, it's a little bit different, right? Anyway, I've got to be very careful what I say because I'm not from here, and I always get told, well, if you don't like it, you can F off home. I'm like, all right, okay, so I don't talk about it. Let's touch on your teaching, Dorothea. You've got a great way of teaching, especially all your videos you put out. And the thing I love, you're very open about things don't come easy. There's a quote here that you said, I think many people quit because they don't get instant gratification. If you put in the work, you will see the results. Don't put the cart before the horse. Now, I think that's a really important message, and I think, again, this comes back to you can get guitar hero, drum hero, all that sort of thing, and it's not how it is. So when these kids sort of get a guitar, learning guitar, or piano for that matter, you get sore fingers, right? Especially if the guitar strings cut your fingers, etc., and then people throw it aside.
You have to get beyond that.
Right, you have to push through. But, I just don't know if kids today have got that willingness to be able to do that. And then do you think that comes down with the parent having to say, hey, listen, you got to give this a decent crack? Or do you think it's just to let the child to make their sort of mind up? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it is so different today. And I think the social media and all the video games have a lot to do with it.
Mm.
I think the students that really do well, I think they have talent for one, and they understand the principles in learning, but they also probably come from a family who possibly doesn't allow them X amount of hours and hours and hours on social media.
Right.
And they're, they have such and such a time to do their studies and such a time to do their studying their instrument, practicing. And I think it has a lot to do with the parents.
Right.
If the parents are nonchalant about it, because I taught not this past school year, but 2 years prior to that at a music studio at the mall. And the students that I had, it makes me shake my head because if I asked them if they practiced, because I could tell that didn't, if I asked them, they said, yeah, I practiced about 30 minutes before I came.
Right.
And that was for the whole week because they knew they were coming to the lesson.
Right.
So, you can't advance. You cannot get better by practicing 30 minutes before your lesson and not even touching the sticks. But the parents are paying for the lesson, but why are they not stressing every day? Did you practice yet? I didn't hear you practicing. You have to be stricter as a parent. Don't let the kids just fly by doing nothing and being in their room stuck on social media doing absolutely nothing as far as progressing in their instrument or their studies or whatever.
Now, you've been teaching for a number of years. Looking back, do you is there certain times where a kid's come in, sat down, and you've just gone, whoa, okay, this kid is gifted? Does that happen very often?
It doesn't happen very often, not as often as I would like it to.
Right.
But I do have some natural students that I've had over the years. Some of them, have really made it, and they're living in Nashville as
Oh,
musicians.
is that right? So they've gone on to do good things, yeah?
Yes, yes. And there was a little 5-year-old that came to me. I don't even think he was in kindergarten yet when he first started with me, had perfect rhythm. And you wouldn't have to tell him where the downbeat is because he already knew. He could feel it. And finding those students is just, like finding a diamond in the rough. Oh my goodness, it's so exciting, but I wish that I could find more natural talent and then help them in the right direction of what they need to be playing. So he should be about 7.5-ish now. I'm hoping that he's still doing it.
Right.
I haven't been in contact with him.
And those sort of students, because they've got I call it a gift, right? Like it's a gift, whatever it may be. Yeah. Do you find they sort of they warm more to the idea and they're willing to rehearse a lot more, or do you find you've got to push them a little bit harder because it's just natural to them?
Well, there's probably both examples for both type students. Some of them are just natural and just spend all kinds of time practicing. It reminds me of is he called Little Boy Drummer? Baby Boy Drummer on Instagram.
Right.
And he comes from a family, the mother sings and the father's on keyboards, and he's just amazing. And I think he's like 6 or so, and his little sister is 2. She's in diapers, and there's a video just of late, probably within this last week. She's clicking off the song on her sticks, clicking them together, and comes in and starts grooving. She's 2.
Is that right?
Sitting there in diapers.
That's incredible.
Just born with it. And she's been there watching her brother and her mother. She's been sitting on her mom's lap during these videos with the other little boy.
Right.
And she's thinking, I can do that.
Yeah. Just a sponge soaking it all in, right?
Yes. And I think that's what my grandson did.
Right.
He was here. I've been watching him while his parents work since he was 6 weeks old. I've had him here at my house. So he was always listening. And he was just born with the rhythm.
Right.
And sit down and play to music when he was like 2.5 years old.
I've seen a couple of videos of him actually that you've posted online. He seems to be oh, you're back. He seems to be
I had a call coming in. I had to decline. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, I've seen him on your Instagram page, and he seems to have the feel, right? Like he just seems to, like you say, have it. Did you sort of have to like sit down and go through things with him, or did he just naturally pick everything up?
He just naturally picked it up.
Wow.
He really did.
So we'll go back to you've had your first child. You were playing 5 nights a week. You went back to doing that. How long did you continue playing 5 nights a week? Did that get a little bit monotonous after a while? Did you leave that? What sort of progressed after that?
I did, but this was still in the 70s because I remember the particular venue when I was pregnant with the second child.
Right.
Because my first child was born in 72 and the other one was 75, and I was still active and playing.
Right.
And I know that we played other places, like 5 nights a week. And then I started picking up odds and ends also with other people.
Right.
And I think that particular band, the lead guitarist and singer, he got ill. So that's what happened to that. I had forgotten about that.
Right.
So then, but I had 2 children, and I think that's when I was just picking up odds and ends. And then by 84, I had a 3rd child.
Okay.
Kind of like, oops.
He's like, that one's your favorite though, right? We won't talk about him.
Yeah, he's the dancer.
Oh,
So
right.
I think by then I wasn't playing with anybody in particular. I was teaching
Right.
students at my home, and I kind of just stayed home because then I had three that I had to take here and there to cheerleading practice and wrestling and things
Right.
like that,
So you're
baseball
being a mum.
with the older two. And then in 86, I think I started playing, teaching at the high school.
Mm-hmm.
5 days a week, I was there teaching drumline at the high school. So I don't think I was playing much at all then, and started playing theater groups, local theater.
Yep.
Started hiring me to play their shows. So I did that. Then I played in symphony orchestra for 10 years.
Oh, is that right? Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So going through all this time period through the 70s, 80s, were your music tastes evolving as well, or did you sort of stick to the same genre? What you liked is what you like. How did that all go?
Well, back in the like 68, before I got married and left, I was listening to Zeppelin and
Of course you were.
Cream, Iron Butterfly, and the Doors. So
Yeah.
I loved that kind of music
Yeah.
from then. And
Mm.
then the 80s music came out, the 80s hair bands, and I had a few favorites. And I've always really tried to stay current, because when you're teaching,
Yep.
those kids don't want to know about the olden days. So I've
Mm.
always tried to keep up with the bands that were popular on the radio.
Yep.
Green Day, when they
Yep.
came out, I can't remember what year, but bands like that, I just tried to stay current. And I would buy Modern Drummer magazine so that I could talk the lingo, with the kids.
Right.
And I knew all the products. And I started working in a music store. I can't remember what year, but I was at the music store for 10 years. So I needed to know all about what band was playing what kind of equipment. I learned to tune people's drums, and help them choose their drum sets, and
Nice.
help them choose correct kinds of cymbals for their use, and the right kind of drumstick. And so I was trying to just stay current with everything.
Yeah.
So I've always like 21 Pilots. I love 21 Pilots.
Right. That's so good. And then the 90s was really, really huge, right? Because there's a massive shift in music. The whole grunge thing came along, the likes of, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden. That sort of really changed everything.
It did.
Yeah, and that's when I sort of started playing in cover bands. I was in my late teens, early 20s. And, for me, everything changed too, because before that, I can't even remember what I was listening to. Isn't that odd? There was always AC/DC, Iron Maiden, Led Zeppelin. That was always there.
Right.
But then there's always the current stuff. But I just remember the 90s being such a change, and all these other bands coming out too, like Mother Love Bone, which was before Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden. The guy died before their first album was released, and the offshoot was Pearl Jam and Soundgarden. So there was all these crazy things going on. And then I started noticing some incredible drummers like Jack Irons popping up, and then there was a lot of just session drummers becoming really, really well known as well. And then we sort of get to the sort of end of late 90s and the early 2000s, and then YouTube came along. And that's just when everything changed, because I remember trying to learn songs. We got internet fairly early-ish. I think it was 1996, 97 in New Zealand. It was dial-up, of course, the old brrr, all that. So
Yeah.
and we used to try and download, first of all, lyrics for songs that we're learning, because it was all by ear otherwise, and half the time the lyrics we've written down, what we thought we heard, was not the lyrics.
Was not.
No. But then trying to figure out songs, complex songs, and then Tab was a thing, and that was released.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, and then, but now, listen, you can, like if I play in a corporate cover band still, and if we're learning a new song, I'll just go to YouTube and go, how to play said song, and then boom, there's a lesson there,
Yes.
So it's so different.
Different world now.
Yeah. So when did you start? Because your social media presence is massive, and you've had great success. What made you start posting videos?
Well, like you, when I found out about YouTube, I was watching a lot of musicians, and I said, I'm going to just try it just for the heck of it.
Right.
And, I put up a video and it got pretty much, a good response. And then I said, well, I'll do another one just for fun, just for something to do. And one of the ones that I put up, it got like 250,000
Wow.
in a short time.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa. So it was just fun. And just like Instagram, when it came along, my children were into Instagram,
Right.
and they were looking at their favorite things on Instagram and said, Mom, you should try that. And so I did.
And boom.
And yeah, it really, someone shared a paradiddle video, I believe.
Right.
And then another person shared it, and it just like within 2 days, it had 192,000 views on it. So then I started getting more and more followers. Right. So then I said, well, I've got to keep doing this. And so I just keep doing it.
How long ago was that? Do you remember what year you started doing that?
It's only been, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years. It hasn't been that long.
Right. And that's incredible in that amount of time, because I think you're at 216,000 followers right now, which is great.
Guess what, though? I believe I have 230,000 on TikTok, and I just started.
Is that right? You're
during this COVID.
Okay. You're everywhere. And so have you, because you do online lessons too, correct?
Yes.
So that must have grown exponentially once you started doing all the Instagram posting.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And
it's been fun during this COVID. I've picked up several. And then I have like little conferences with different people, just Indonesia, Singapore, Brazil. They'll ask me for just like a brief lesson in questions they might have, or do like a lesson explanation on something. And then I don't hear from them for a couple of months. And then they'll get with me. I want you to help me with such and such. And so I've picked up people from all over the world.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Which has been really fun.
Yeah, I bet it has. Now, I want to talk about, and this is how I actually first come to know about you, Dorothea, the Drumeo sessions. And the first video I saw was labeled The Godmother of Drumming. And it was the setup where you're walking into the drum store and the guy goes, oh, the organs are in the back there. And like, I just thought that was hilarious because I knew where it was going, because Drumeo, they wouldn't have had this if the person couldn't play drums. And then the song you were playing, I was just like, what is going on? And I've watched that like, I don't know how many times now, and I've shared that with so many different people. And I've got a friend, his name's Stan Bicknell. He's a Kiwi New Zealander, living in Australia, and he got flown out.
I follow him.
Oh, okay. He's a good friend of mine, and he's a great dude, such a good dude. And he came really well known because of his single foot technique.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's been very open, saying it's a modular sort of idea, but just with your foot, So he got flown out to Drumeo too, and he said the experience was just incredible.
They're so great. They're the nicest people ever.
Apparently so. So how did you get contacted? They were obviously following you, and you just got an email one day, and that was how that all happened?
I think I got an Instagram message.
Right.
and then they asked for my telephone number, and I wanted to make sure it really was Drumeo.
I'm sure.
So, I checked a little bit. So then I said, okay. So I gave him the telephone number. And then I think the next day I could see that it was Canada coming in.
Yep.
And I said, hello. And he said, hi, Dorothea. And I said, hi, Dave. I recognized his voice. I knew it was Dave.
Away. Yeah.
And then he said he wants me to come out there. They want me to come out there. And I said, but with all the artists that you bring out there, why would you bring me? Little old me,
Okay,
some
so
old lady that plays drums.
this is where I need to stop you there. Like, and this is what I absolutely adore about you. You just don't realize like the message and who you are, how wonderful it is, Dorothea. Like, and that's so cool because you're just so humble. But of course, they would want someone like you. Like when I saw the video, I was just like, oh my god, like this is such a wicked move on Drumio's part because straight away you inspired me. Like I played drums when I was 13 and I stopped when I was 18 and went to bass. But when I saw you and then I started watching your videos, like I said in the intro, I want to start playing drums again. Like there's something about you. You're just so personal, and you're just really inspirational. Like I say, it just makes sense.
It's crazy though,
Right.
because if you look back at Drumeo and who are all of the artists that they bring in, and then they brought me, and I'm nobody. I'm just, a lady who has always played drums. No one has. My sister-in-law lives next door,
Right.
and brother-in-law. They have never seen me play drums. They could probably hear me through the wall, but they've never once come over here and asked to see me play. All the people at church barely knew that they didn't know I was a drummer because I play the organ at church.
Right.
And
how does it
so
make you
now
feel though?
since,
Like
pardon me?
how does that make you feel? The fact that you got taken to Drumeo and Stan told me this too. When you walk down the hallway and you look at all the photos, he said he had like a bit of imposter syndrome, like I shouldn't really be here, sort of thing.
Well, that's exactly how I felt.
Right.
Exactly.
But it must
just
give you a little bit of a buzz though, yeah, to be taken out there and record in those studios where all those other players have been.
I was so nervous. I was so nervous because I just felt like I wouldn't be able to do everything that everyone else does out there.
Right.
But they said, don't worry, we've got some things planned.
Mm-hmm.
And that when I got there, that's when they told me that I was going to have to do a little acting.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, what?
Yeah, it was so well done though.
And then, so then they said, we're going to go to a music store, and then we're going to go to a recording studio before, like a pretend. Yep. When we went up the steps, mm-hmm. and the guy was playing the guitar, and he said, but you're going to drive. I'm like, what? I didn't know where I was, let alone where I was going.
Yeah.
And we're going to play the music. We want you to play on the steering wheel. I'm like, okay. Luckily, it wasn't that far from where we were. So I drove to that music store.
Yeah. And how many days were you up there?
3.
3 days. So were 3 full.
And we crammed it in too, because I just saw, I think it was yesterday or day before, something that I had done on Drumeo.
Yep.
Just little short snippets. We'd do one and then like cut. Okay, let's do another one. Dave was just sitting there. Okay, yep. let's how do you play such and such? I'd forgotten some of the ones that I did because we did them so, boom, 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 boom. So it was just fun. We just crammed as much as we could in that time.
3 days of recording every day, yeah?
Yep. And we went out to dinner with Jared and Dave and myself. And Jared said, I just saw someone play paradiddles on an egg. We're going to do it. We're going to go in the kitchen tomorrow and see how it works out.
Yeah.
So we didn't really have much to set it up with. We tried to get it where the egg wouldn't roll off the table and then play on the pads. And so we did it, and I didn't break it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that video, actually. It's brilliant.
So that was kind of a cutesy type video that we did. And then the others were just there behind those drums, and they have so many drums to choose from. It's just awesome.
I bet. It'll be like walking into a candy shop, no doubt.
It was, yeah.
Now, just talking about gear, you have a DW kit at home, right? That's your main kit.
Yes. Yes.
Was it Premiere? Was the other kit you had? You got 3 kits.
No, I have a vintage.
Vintage.
Oh my gosh, my mind. Rogers.
Right.
a vintage Rogers from 1965. I have that set up in my studio.
Yeah.
And then I have a little Questlove kit that I was using for the last several gigs that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's right here in my husband's office. Right. And then I have a percussion kit.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with that. It was made by Rims, RIMS.
I think I've seen it on Instagram, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just flat.
Yeah.
So those are the four kits that I have. And then I just have a bunch of cymbals because I worked in music stores. And I feel like, because if you have an ear for music, if you have a gig, like I've had several kinds of gigs. I play some church programs, like they'll do an Easter program. Right. Well, I'm not going to take a loud bashing crash or ride.
Big China.
I have cymbals for every occasion.
Right.
If I'm playing outdoors, because I've done some rock type, classic rock concerts outdoors, you've got to have something that will cut through. So just by having your trained ear, you have different cymbals. So I have a whole set of Ks, K darks.
Yes, nice.
Which are still not as dark as the Meinls. Then I have a slew of Meinls. And then I have a really cool set of Sabian HHX.
Right.
And depending on where I'm going is when I choose my cymbals.
Again, that's a sign of another good artist, right? Knowing your environment, knowing who you're playing with, and playing to the music you're playing with, and also the audience.
Yes. And different sticks. Mm-hmm. People say, what kind of sticks do you use? Well, it all depends on what I'm going to be doing.
The occasion.
If I'm playing jazz, I'm going to use maybe the AJ 1s or AJ 4s or 5s or whatever.
Yeah.
Something that has or the Peter Erskines have that ride, little thin tip, because it makes the cymbal sound better. If you put a heavy stick on the cymbal, even a jazz cymbal, it is not going to sound good.
Right. Now, we've got to sort of just quickly just give a big shout out to your husband, because I would imagine over the years hearing you play drums over and over and over again, because drums aren't a quiet instrument. Do you know what I mean?
No.
He's just got to be a true legend and a champion. He's always been supportive, obviously, of your drumming. And does he play music at all himself?
He does not.
Right.
Even though his name is James Taylor.
Oh, is that right? It's not the then, obviously.
It's not the James Taylor. Okay. No. He doesn't play any instrument. And I really honestly think that when we got married, he thought that would be
right.
My drumming days would be over.
Right.
Little did he know. So he's really had to put up with it. Yeah. He doesn't go to any of my gigs.
Right.
He just isn't into that kind of thing.
Right.
He doesn't drink, so he doesn't go and hang out and just watch me play all those hours. He just never has, really.
Right. Isn't that such a lovely thing though? Like, because you've been obviously married for a long time. Let's do the math. It's 40 plus years, right? Well, of course.
50 years this summer.
Oh, well, congratulations. That is beautiful. To be able to be in a marriage like that and be able to go and do your own thing and still be able to function as a couple, that's just such a beautiful thing. You guys must have obviously been the right match. So, and that's very rare to find today too. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it is.
Like you look at
He always says, you do your thing, you go to your work, you don't go to my work, which I never went to his work. And so he just figured it was what I was doing for work.
Yeah.
And let me do my own thing.
He's a good man. He's a keeper.
Yeah. Yes.
Now let's just talk about sort of reflection, Dorothea, because a lot has happened to you over in the 56 years of playing drumming. I mean, how have you dealt with the online fame, if you want to call it that, with Instagram? I mean, here I am, a random dude that sends you an email going, "Hey, I'd like you to be on my podcast." Like, you must get annoyed all the time with things like that, and you're so humble and so lovely with your time. How has that been a sort of hard thing to deal with the rise of notoriety and things like that?
Well, it almost got to the point. It seems like it's calmed down in the last few weeks, but a friend of my son who owns that dance company, he's really into social media. So he was helping me manage
Right.
some of the things because I was just being overwhelmed
I
by
bet.
requests and messages. So he was helping me out. But for the last 2 or 3 weeks, things have calmed down. But like when I open my phone up or iPad or whatever in the morning, I have hundreds of messages.
Mm.
And I scan through them quickly to see if it's someone genuine that has a question or whatever. And like yourself, I want to scan through to see if it's something that I would be interested in.
Right.
I don't want to just have all these people speaking to me and complimenting me without appreciating what they're saying to me.
Right.
So even on TikTok, I'll scroll through quickly. If it's just a a heart or something like that, might scroll through a little quicker. But if it's a sentence, I usually read through them really quickly to see if it's something that is worth replying back. Just because they've taken the time, I feel like I need to take the time.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of hours in the day just searching through
I'm
through
sure.
messages.
I'm sure you do.
And I have Facebook messages too.
Oh my goodness. Now, if we talk about reflection as going back to small town Michigan to now, if you could do everything over, is there anything you would change? Anything you'd do differently?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. My drumming has not been like a career that to be financially set. My husband worked full time. He's always been the breadwinner. All the drumming that I have done and if I've gotten paid, it paid for the little extras like buying the children clothes and just having all my drum supplies and things like that. But I've never had to play. I've never had to work. It's just money that I've made because it was something that I loved to do and I happened to get paid for it. So I don't think I would change anything. I think it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a perfect answer. And to young children, to parents, what would be your message if, say, there's someone that's thinking about starting drums, or someone that's been drumming for 5 or 6 years that has got substantially quite good? What would be your sort of message for them to any advice that you could give to them?
I always say, be the best that you can be. If you have the opportunity, if you have parents that are wealthy enough to have purchased a beautiful drum set or a guitar or piano or whatever it is for you, you are going to regret it. You're going to kick yourself in the butt when you get older, because I have had so many comments on, I used to play drums in high school. I wish that I had continued. Well, my question is, why didn't you? Because you had the opportunity. Or I used to have a really nice set of Ludwig drums and I sold it when I finished high school.
Right.
Well, why did you do that? I didn't. I still have all my stuff because I've used those instruments just for my enjoyment. Even if I'm not playing to get paid, I go upstairs and just play just for enjoyment.
Right.
That's my hobby. So if you have the opportunity and you know that you have musical talent and you have the opportunity to take lessons, do it. And you will not regret spending that time. I don't regret any of the time that I've spent on the practice pad or the drum set. I don't regret any of that because look where I am today.
Exactly. And I think also, I remember reading somewhere that, were you 11 or was it grade 11 when your dad finally got you a kit? And then because you sat down and started playing around it, and he was like, whoa, where did you learn to do that? Because you've been doing all pad practice. And I think it was because your parents weren't that wealthy at the time. They couldn't actually afford a kit, but they got to a point where he was able to get you one.
Yes.
I think that's a big part of it too, because kids today that get given everything, they don't appreciate the hard work it takes to get them. And let's face it, drum kits aren't cheap,
Gosh.
right?
Right.
I mean, a cymbal can be more than a cost of a guitar, you know.
A cymbal, if the parents, for one, don't realize that you could pay $400 for a cymbal.
Right.
And that parent had just probably thought they spent a good, expensive $300 on a drum set. And then when they find out one ride cymbal is $400, they're in a little shock.
Yeah, for sure. And also I think that parents, when they get the kid home and the kid jumps in the bedroom and starts bashing them, they're loud, man. It's not like, like it's, I don't think a lot of people actually appreciate how loud drum kits are.
So when my father did find that drum set that day in the music store, it was a music store that had, it was a family-owned music store, and their son had that red sparkle drum set and probably wanted a different one. So they put it in the window, and my father just happened to walk by. So he got it at a pretty good deal. But when he brought it home, it was like it could have cost $1 million to me. It was just knowing that I finally had a drum set, because I had asked for one for, probably when I was in 9th grade and 10th grade and 11th grade for Christmas. And this wasn't a special event. It was just, he found it at the right time and he brought it home, and they never, my mom or my dad, never once said, could you be quiet?
Is that right?
Could you not play right now? My father would be in his recliner and I would be in the corner of the living room where we had the drum set up.
Oh, in the same room?
And he would fall asleep in his recliner while I was playing. Oh. Because I think also, I don't think I was just banging. I think I was playing, because I had 3 years of rudimental training anyway.
Yes.
By then. So I was probably making enough music where it wasn't harsh to the ears. It wasn't just like bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
But they never once ever told me. And I run into that problem all the time with these students, especially the music studio that I had at the mall. The child would say, oh, my mom's boyfriend wouldn't let me play. He wouldn't let me practice.
Okay. Mum's boyfriend's got to go.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And all the students that I have at the middle school, a lot of those young children, you'd be surprised at what kind of homes they live in. And it's just so sad that they're not allowed to, they won't even buy them any drumsticks.
Right.
So I have taken some of my drumsticks a lot of times and given them to the student. And I say, no, put these in a good place. Don't let them get lost. Don't let them, be taken from you. Hide them in a place. Leave them here at school and they will be yours, or hide them in your book bag. Because it's sad. If your parent lets you sign up for an instrument, you're not going to let the child practice because it's loud.
Yeah. Doesn't make sense.
Why would you let them sign up if they can't practice?
Exactly. So just getting towards the end, Dorothea, I always like to ask the people to have a conversation with next 5 years. What are your plans? Please don't tell me you're thinking of slowing down. Like you've just got to keep this going. Do you think about that at all as far as your playing, teaching goes? Do you like, next 5 years I'm going to wind down, or this is where I'm going to be? So what's your process?
Well, I've wondered, because I'm going to be 70 in November. And how many 70-year-olds play drums? It's just crazy.
Not enough.
But I can't see myself stopping.
Good.
At the same time. Because I'm thinking, on one part of me thinks, when I go upstairs, I really don't need any new equipment.
Right.
But I love new things. I love new, any kind of percussion equipment. But do I really need to buy any? And what's scary is, because I'm old, what's going to happen to all my beautiful drums and all my cymbals? Where are they going to go?
Well, your
I don't know what
son,
people are going to do with them.
grandson, you got to put that stuff in your will now so they don't get taken and sold somewhere. So, because
Yes.
I've seen photos of all your kit, and it's lovely. So yeah, you want to look after that. And I mean, the legacy that you're going to leave behind, just with your name, but with your teaching also. But just you imagine your grandson taking all that off your hands. The time it comes when you do sort of leave
I
this
hope
earth.
so.
Yeah, like it's just going to be so much legacy to it. So you want to protect that for sure.
But I don't know if I'll ever play in a band again. Right now, I don't have any leads on anything. I'll probably still do a few little church concerts here and there.
I really think it's going to
Because
change a little bit too when the COVID thing clears up.
well, exactly.
Yeah.
Something could open up. I don't see myself playing like 5 nights a week or anything.
No.
I wouldn't mind picking up a gig here and there.
Yeah.
Someone called me, say, "Hey, you want to play such and such a gig?"
Yep.
I could see myself doing that. But as far as lugging the drums in and out several nights a week, I think I've already been there. I've done that.
A couple times.
Yeah. Yeah. I enjoy what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Is teaching online and just doing these interviews and still sticking up videos on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I need to get back now. Probably this winter I'll start putting some new things on YouTube.
Right. Now, talking about social media, I'm going to put everything in the links, as well as all information will go there. But just tell everyone right now where they can find you on every platform.
Okay. Well, on Instagram and TikTok, both, they're the same. It's Taylor, Taylor .Dorothea, Dorothea.
Perfect.
And then on Facebook, you can find me at Dorothea Jose, Jose Taylor. And the reason I put Jose is that's my maiden name. It's not Jose. It looks like Jose, but it's not. It's English. My grandparents were from England.
Oh, really?
And so I put that there just so people would know me from school if they were looking me up. So Dorothea Jose Taylor. And YouTube, it's DT Drummer Lady.
DT Drummer Lady. Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as I said, I'm going to have all that information in the links, everything below. Dorothea, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. You're a beautiful soul. I've been looking forward to this since you said you'd do it for a couple of weeks now. So thank you so much for taking the time out. I know that it's your Saturday morning, and your husband's probably in the background going, "Get off the call so we can go do something." So
he just came in and pointed to his stomach like he's hungry.
Perfect timing. Okay. Again, thank you so much. Everyone listening, watching, check out the links, get down there. I didn't really go into it today about rudiments and all that sort of thing because Dorothea has documented that hugely in other interviews she's done. But you can find all the links below. Go check them out. These videos are incredible. If you really want to push your craft, really want to learn some really good technique, you want to go check her out. Again, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. You're a great person. I've really enjoyed today.
Thank you so much.